Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are tearing down the U.S. intelligence community's 2026 annual threat assessment. We're going to break down this really complex world of global and domestic risks exactly as it's presented to the nation's top policymakers.
Okay, let's just dive right in with the core message from the intelligence community. This one sentence, right here, really sets the stage for everything we're about to see. A world where threats aren't just piling up, they're constantly changing shape.
So, where does the assessment kick things off? Well, right here at home, at the U.S. southern border. And let me tell you, this isn't just about migration. We're talking about a complex web of drug trafficking, incredibly powerful criminal organizations, and just general instability in the region.
Now, what's really fascinating here is this number. The briefing points to a huge, 83.8% drop in monthly border encounters from one year to the next. They attribute this massive decline to some really strict policy enforcement that they say has been a major deterrent.
But a number like that never tells the whole story, does it? The assessment is super clear that the things that actually cause migration, well, they haven't gone anywhere. Worsening conditions in places like Cuba and Haiti could easily spark new waves, and you can bet the transnational criminal organizations, or TCOs, are always ready to profit from that kind of chaos.
This slide really shows you the two sides of the coin when it comes to the drug threat. On the one hand, the briefing highlights what looks like real progress, a reported 30% drop in fentanyl overdose deaths. They say that's thanks to aggressively going after these criminal groups. But then, on the other hand, it hammers home the immense power of Mexican cartels like Sinaloa and Jalisco, who are still the undisputed kings of producing and smuggling the absolute deadliest drugs into the United States.
All right, so let's shift gears. We're moving from the criminal threats at the border to the ideological ones. We're talking global terrorism, and this is a space where the whole nature of the threat has completely changed.
To really get the why behind these threats, the briefing points to this core ideological goal, the whole idea of establishing an Islamist caliphate. That's described as the central political mission they use for everything, for recruiting, for fundraising, and for motivating followers all over the world.
So here's the crucial point. They've had to pivot. U.S. counterterrorism efforts have made it way harder for groups like al-Qaeda and ISIS to plan those big, complex 9/11-style attacks. So what do? They adapt it. Now the new focus is all about information warfare, using online propaganda to inspire, or worse, enable people already living in the West to carry out attacks all on their own.
So even though the threat at home has morphed into this lone actor problem, the assessment is clear that these specific overseas branches are still a major danger to U.S. interests abroad. You've got ISIS in Syria trying to get back on its feet, and you've got its affiliates just exploding across Africa. These groups are absolutely still a major focus for the intelligence community.
Okay, now we are zooming out big time. We're moving beyond those non-state groups to what the assessment calls the most significant and, potentially the most dangerous threats from other countries.
And just look at this timeline. It's pretty stark. The intelligence community is projecting that the number of adversary missiles that can actually reach the U.S. homeland is going to explode. We're talking from over 3,000 today to more than 16,000 by 2035. That is a massive, massive expansion of direct threats to American soil.
And here, the briefing breaks down what it calls the Big Four. You've got China rapidly modernizing its military with a clear eye on Taiwan. You have Russia with its potential for any conflict to escalate, plus its development of these crazy advanced hypersonic weapons. We're talking missiles that can travel at insane speeds and dodge defenses. Then there's North Korea, expanding its nuclear arsenal and getting cozier with Moscow. And finally, Iran, using proxy groups to cause trouble and having the potential to build its own long-range missile.
All right, Section 4, this is where we get into the really 21st century stuff. These are the new battlegrounds, the places where future fights are likely going to happen, and they're way beyond the traditional land, sea, and air.
In the cyber world, the fight is happening 24/7. It just never stops. The assessment points its finger directly at China and Russia, calling them the most persistent threats out there. They're in a constant state of trying to break into U.S. government and private company networks to steal secrets and maybe even set up for future disruptions.
And here is a perfect example of how all this stuff connects. According to this assessment, North Korea swiped an estimated $2 billion in cryptocurrency in 2025 alone. Now that money isn't just making the regime rich, it's being funneled directly into developing its weapons programs. So you literally have cybercrime fueling a major national security threat.
And the competition isn't just happening here on Earth anymore. The assessment warns that space is no longer a safe haven.
China and Russia are actively building counter-space weapons. We're talking weapons designed to interfere with or maybe even disable critical U.S. satellites. Then you've got artificial intelligence. The assessment calls it a defining technology, which honestly feels like an understatement. They see it as something that's going to completely change the threat landscape. And in this incredibly important field, it says China is America's most capable competitor. AI could accelerate threats across every single domain we've talked about.
So, the assessment raises a point that goes way beyond just competition. It asks a really fundamental question about the future of security. As these AI-driven systems get more and more autonomous, how do we make absolutely sure that human beings are the ones who stay in control? It's a pretty chilling thought, isn't it? All right, for our final section, we're taking a quick trip around the globe. The assessment does a rapid scan of different regions, pointing out conflicts and unstable areas that could boil over and directly affect U.S. interests. So from struggling economies and crime in Latin America to these huge fundamental changes shaking up the Middle East after recent wars, and then you have the ongoing instability across Africa where terror groups are just growing and growing. I mean, the briefing really paints a picture of a world just simmering with tension.
The sheer scale of all these challenges is just staggering. You've got everything from drug cartels to cyber code, from small regional fights to massive great power competition. It covers almost every corner of the planet and every part of modern life, which leaves us with one last, really critical question. When the threats seem to be everywhere, all at once, how does a nation even begin to decide what to deal with first?